are some powerhouse, incredible, resilient women in the world, and Shelly Besancon is definitely one of them. Her story is absolutely fabulous, and I am so glad that I have the honor of getting to know her. She is such a down-to-earth spirit and so lighthearted and just everything wonderful about her. And so, Shelly, welcome to the Power Transformation Podcast.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here. I appreciate
I'm
it.
ex Yes, I am so excited to have you, and I want to dive right into this interview. Now, I always like to start with something lighthearted, fun, nothing related to what we are discussing in the show, just to see a side of us that's more that human part of us. So, this is your question for you. Shelly, would you rather always drive in reverse or always drive 25 miles over the speed limit?
Um, well, I'm going to have to say I'll probably drive 25 miles over the speed limit. I am, I would have to say because I am a 2-5 manifesting generator in human design. I
Mhm.
am one of the kind of people that tends to look at something and then I jump ahead 10 steps already. So I miss like half of the steps in between, and then I have to realize that I'm so far ahead of everybody. And I'm like, why is everybody? I'm waiting for everybody. I'm like, I'm so well, like way ahead. So I think that I would go 25 miles over because it would hurt my
Well,
neck going backwards.
yeah, it would. It would. And I like that answer. I like how well thought out that answer was. I too would go the 25 miles over, but I don't think it would be that deep. I just think for me, it's like, because I like that rush of speed, but I am a safe driver, but I just like that speed and I get everywhere earlier. So that was fun. But I like your logic in that and how you thought through it. And throughout your life, you have definitely had to think through different challenges. You definitely don't go backwards in your life, but you're always moving forward. And before we get into that, this is $1 million question for you. But who is Shelly Besancon?
Mm. Oh, let's see. If I were to describe myself, I would say I'm very open, inviting. I'm also a very, very big energy. I come in with a lot of energy and then I retreat back into my cave. I don't want anybody around me. I don't want my animals around me. I want everybody to go away. So I go back into my hermit mode, but I mean, I absolutely, when I come out of my cave, I love people. I just want to, I go out into public and I'm like, oh my God, you're beautiful. Did you know you're beautiful? Oh my God,
Wow.
I love you. Oh my God, look at those earrings. It's like, so this energy just flies out of me. And it's more like a social butterfly that keeps going back into her cocoon to regenerate and come back out with her wings. Um, I think that would probably be something to describe
Mm.
me of because I hear that a lot from other people. It's like, oh my God, you have such big energy. And it's like, I do. It's just like I just
Yeah.
have to, it comes out really big and fast. But I love to envelop people into my arms, but I also want them to go away.
Yes. But but it's really interesting the way that you described yourself because even in the short time that we've known each other, your comments on some of my posts have been very intentional, have been very heart-centered, have been very authentic. And I see that in terms of just how you pour compliments on people. And I can tell that it's not you being pretentious, it's not you being fake about it. It's a sincere place in your heart. And the work that you do falls right into alignment with you really caring about people. And we'll talk more about it later, but briefly share with us what you do for a living in terms of how you help others be their best self.
Well, I originally wanted to be a life coach just to help people because of the journey I went through, and people were so in awe of what I did. I just kind of naturally stepped into that role as a life coach to help people and go, okay, this is how I overcame all these things. And people started coming, how did you do it? How did you do it? And then when I went behind the scenes and lost 65 pounds about 4 years ago, almost 5 years ago, I came out and said, okay, look at this is what I did. And it kind of found me. So I started to the last couple of years, I decided to become a weight loss coach because I found the weight loss part was actually easy
Mm,
and people are trying to make it so hard. And so I started experimenting with people and saying, okay, this is what I did. This is what do these steps. And people started losing weight and it became easy for them. And they're like, oh my God, this was so easy. It's like, it's so simple to do. But with all the chatter out there, I stepped into becoming a weight loss coach because this stuff lights me up. It's like, it's so fascinating to understand the human body and just how it works and the functions and how we make it so complicated, but yet our bodies are timeless. They
mhm,
still work the same as they did 100 years ago. The weight loss industry still works the same as it did 100 years ago. And that's what we need to go back to the basics. And so that's what I just kind of, it found me. So I am a weight loss coach and I help women lose weight for the last time. So
wow.
it found me.
And yes, and I like when you said help them lose weight for the last time because so many people yo-yo diet and go back and forth and there's no consistency in it. But it's interesting that you would talk about the physical weight that people have, which is in fact true. But also on top of that physical weight, I have found over the years too is that so many people carry emotional weight. And sometimes, not all of the time, but sometimes that can manifest into the added physical weight in terms
Oh,
of how
absolutely.
a person. And so I want to go back and touch on, and we'll lead back to how you help and how you serve women in this area. But just about your authenticity and just being genuine and sincere as a person, take us back to some of those younger years of Shelly. What were some aspects of your childhood or your very young adulthood, youth times that show that sincerity and authenticity when it came to really caring for people? What are some glimpses of that showed in your younger life?
Well, I'm not sure I really found that part of me when I was young.
Ah, tell us more.
I think I think I was more because I was a very, very quiet, shy child. And people who know me
Really?
now, they're like, "You were shy." It's like,
I
yes,
know. I'm like, what really?
yes, I was incredibly shy. I was terrified to speak up and speak my voice. And I think a lot of that comes from the fact that I have a very large family. I have 10 brothers and I have 3 sisters. And so when I was growing up in a very large family, my brothers loved to teach me, to pick on me, sorry, because when I did react, it was very dramatic. I mean,
Mm,
that big energy came out as like, oh my God, you're picking on me. And I didn't like it. And I just wanted them to like me. And in my young mind, I thought that they didn't like me because they were picking on me. Turns out, years later, I found out that they just loved my big reactions. So they kept doing it. And so I shut down even further. So when I was in school and a teacher would ask me a question, I would my whole body would freeze up and I couldn't speak in class. And everybody thought that there was something wrong with me. In fact, some of the teachers thought that there was something so wrong with me that they put me in special needs
mm,
classes. And then they quickly realized I didn't need extra help. My brain worked fine. It was just that I was so terrified to speak up in class that
mm.
they realized that I could go back to regular classes, but it was that I just couldn't speak in class. So they thought I was, not very smart.
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
was. And I ended up, graduating with honors when I did graduate from high school. But there was so much of the mind chatter
Mm-hmm.
that I made so many stories up in my head about what my family thought about me that I just locked it all up. So I locked it up so tight that I actually developed um, different situations in my body where I could not cry,
Mm.
I could not sweat, I could not poop. I had no bowel movement. I had very, very hard, a chronic constipation for at least 15 to 20 years.
Oh, wow.
Really bad chronic constipation. But I had a very hard time speaking up for myself. And when I was 10, my birth mother, passed away from breast cancer. And so then when I had watched the reactions of how everybody handled it, but nobody came to me to say that, are you okay? It just seemed to me that everybody was going about their business as a normal life. And it was like, I was so angry inside that nobody seemed to care that our mother died. And so what I found was that I locked it up so tight that it took me probably until my almost 45 before I started to really unpack all of that,
Mm.
and really to process all the things that had gone on in my early life.
Wow. Wow, Shelly, that is quite a bit of a load to carry. That really is. And wow, to experience those physical symptoms of not being able to at least excrete your bodily functions, that's gotta be challenging. And on top of that, I want to get into the heart and into the crux of this because you've learned so many lessons along the way that you also help other people with. And so, just out of curiosity, how were those issues resolved and healed? Did it happen? Like, how do you heal from that?
Well, it's a process, and
Okay.
it was one that I didn't have help doing. But one of the things that going back to my childhood, there
Yeah.
was I kind of started to figure out things when I was like junior. Well, I think I was in middle school, and my brothers would pick on me, like I said. And one of the realizations was after, being picked on so much, I started to retaliate to my brothers. I started to
Oh,
fight back. When they would come up to me and tease me, I always had very, very strong fingernails and I would grab them in their arms and I would squeeze so hard that my fingernails would dig into their skin to get them to go
wow.
away from me because I was so mad that they were picking on me. And I remember having this thought that came in and it was so visceral that it was like my whole body felt it. It said, maybe if you're nice to them, they'll be nice to you. And I
Mm,
remember sitting back, like it was almost like this, my first download. And it was so overwhelming that I just sat and thought, am I being mean to my brothers? And I remember asking myself, am I mean to them? And I was like, yeah, yeah, I am. So it was like that really it I didn't want to be that person. I didn't want to be a
mhm,
mean person because I'm naturally very open and loving.
mhm.
And so what I did is I actually went to my brother and I said, do you want to go get ice cream? And he looked at me like I had grown two horns.
I'm sure. Yeah.
And I remember him just kind of leaning back like, I don't know if this is a trap or not. And I just said, look, I don't want to be mean anymore. I don't want to fight anymore. Let's go have an ice cream and let's just be friends. And what ended up happening is we did go for that ice cream and we ended up hanging out together all through high school. We became
Wow.
super close. And I did that with several other brothers too. I just was like, you know what? They're doing it. And it just dawned on me that they wanted the reaction. And I
Mm.
quit giving him the reaction and it became no fun for them anymore.
Wow. Now, in the order of children, with having the 10 brothers and the three sisters, where were you in that lineage?
I have 8 older and then there's 5 younger.
Wow. So you're the ninth.
Yeah, I'm
Wow.
number 9.
Wow. Whoo wee. I'm sure that was always excitement going on.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that there wasn't always 14 people at the house at one
Of
time. You know,
course.
there were
Mhm.
they would transition out, but so the ones that grew up closest to me, those were the ones that I had the best relationship with. But it took me changing who I was inside for
Mhm.
everything to change in my life. And
Wow.
when I did, I also wanted to drop in real quick. When I had told you that my voice locked up and I couldn't speak my voice in 2009, I was married to my first husband, and I ended up getting polyp thyroid cancer, and I had to have half my thyroid removed. And so one thing that it became very clear that the reason it happened was because my voice was silenced.
Uh-huh. Exactly. And
My
that is,
throat chakra was
yeah.
blocked. Yeah.
Yeah, and that is the best transition, and I'm glad that you mentioned that because you go throughout childhood, and then after that, you are now a legal adult and you're starting your own life. But something happened relationship-wise, and I would definitely go more in depth with other areas, but I want to get to the heart of this matter because so many people out there listening, some may have experienced it, some could be currently experiencing, but there was a serious situation that happened with your first marriage in terms of just how that was, how that helped to shape your identity and who you were. So take us to that story of falling in love and having this person that you think you're going to spend the rest of your life with. But tell us about that experience, Shelly, and how that led you toward the path that you're even on now.
Mm. Um, okay, so in order to tell that story, I have to kind of go back
That's
to
fine.
my childhood.
Mhm.
My dad was he was in the Mormon church, and he had decided to leave the Mormon religion and leave the church. And we moved out to Montana. But he may have left the church, but the church didn't leave him. So we spent a lot of time on Sundays with my dad, putting us all in the living room with him preaching.
Mhm.
And every one of us kids hated it. I got to the point where I wanted to be physically throwing up sick
Mhm.
to get out of that, to have to sit there for hours and listen to him talk and talk and talk. So, because of all these little church sessions that we did have, there was a lot of religious words that were programmed into my young psyche. So, when I was really little, I loved dolls, loved my baby dolls. I mean, they were like I love them so much. And I remember in kindergarten one time, I got a baby doll for Christmas and it cried. Ah, I got
Oh,
to be a mom, and you'd have to get up and, you'd pat its back and love
yes.
on it. Well, my older brother, I'm not going to name names, but he thought it was stupid and it was annoying him and he punched it. And I was angry at him for years and years and years because he killed my baby. That baby doll never cried again. But
Oh,
in my psyche, I thought that my job was to grow up, become a mom, have babies, and be a good wife. That's what I thought I was. That's was my job. So when people would ask me, "What do you want to be?" and I would always tell them, "I'm going to be a mom," because that's what my mom was. That's what I'm supposed to do. I never thought that I could dream about doing anything else.
wow.
So in my whole entire life, it was like, okay, I'm going to keep going until I find the man that I'm supposed to marry. Well, when I did move out from graduate from high school, I moved to Fort Lauderdale. I lived there for four
Oh,
years, so it was a little far away. I was completely
that's
away
a
from my
big
family.
change. Yeah,
It
that's a huge
was.
change.
It was so nice because I finally was away from. I mean, not that I didn't like my family and love my family. It was like I was suddenly away from everybody.
Yeah.
I was away from my brothers, monitoring who I dated. Putting everybody's putting their two bits in on what I was doing because I was the baby sister.
Yeah.
And I was away from everybody, and I got to kind of experience life for the very first time of what it's like to be in a city, because we grew up in the mountains. But because of that downloaded information that was inside of me. When I did finally meet my first husband, he, the way it happened was kind of funny because I didn't like him on our first date.
So how did you meet?
He was a blind date.
Oh.
And my girlfriend had been telling me all about him. And I was like, oh, he sounds so great. He likes kids. He does this, And I kept asking her, I think that you should introduce me. And she kept saying, no, he's not your type. He's not your type. And then it was one day that I was over at her house and something came up to where I just kind of I opened up a lot to her. And I just kind of like my true nature, my true goofy, silly nature came out. And she came up to me later and she's like, okay, I think you should meet him now. And so we went out on a double date. And when I first met him, I wasn't really impressed with him, but I had just moved to Spokane. I didn't know anybody. I didn't know hardly anybody. And so I decided to contact him one day because I was like, I'm so bored. I don't know anybody. I just want to go do something. So I had sent him a message and said, hey, do you want to go for a bike ride? We want to go out on the Centennial Trail. So we started hanging out. And it just kind of naturally, my energy always seems to attract people really strong. Well, he just got very enamored with me. I ended up having to leave the house that I was living in because my roommate, who was a man, apparently he thought that we were dating and we were hanging out and he proposed marriage to me.
Oh my.
And we hadn't even held hands or kissed or anything like that. And it was just like, I didn't even know we were dating. It was like, I thought we were just buddies and hanging out, So it got very awkward in that house. And so after 3 months of knowing him, I ended up, because I was like, I had no other place to go. So I ended up moving in with him and then it progressed really fast. So 3 months later, he proposed to me. And I was so excited to have a man really love me that I said yes. And one of the things I was also very naive on, I was very naive on what being around anyone who was an alcoholic. I was not aware of any of the signs of someone who has been on drug use. And so those are signs and things that I never even recognized.
Yeah. And it makes me wonder too, based on your upbringing, although your father left the Mormon church, the church never left him. And so certain principles that he more than likely stood on weren't things that you would have considered to have been risky, because would it be safe to make the assumption that when you were growing up, you didn't see a lot of alcohol consumption and drunkenness and things like that? Yeah. So you wouldn't have known to
No,
be aware. So once you get married, you know, they often talk about the honeymoon period. I shared with you, I've been engaged. I was never married. I'm in a relationship now, but they always talk about couples having this honeymoon period where it's roses and sunshine and petals, and basically it's that, calm, peaceful time where it's like, okay, we don't have any major issues. Take us through the journey, Shelly, when some of these things that were red flags early on, but you weren't aware they were red flags. When did they enhance, and how did your life really begin to take a turn in this marriage?
well, actually, there was red flags before we got married.
Yes, yes.
And one of them was that I had gone through his closet and got rid of some just old clothes that he had that were really just ratty. And he used to wear those parachute pants. And I'm like,
Oh,
they were horrible. And so I put him in a box to give to Goodwill. And there was one shirt that the pocket, it was a gray shirt and the pocket was like kind of stretched out. And for some reason, something in me said, leave that there. And I'm like, all right, I don't know why that voice came in and said, leave it alone. And so I left it in the closet. Well, then he came up later and he goes, what did you do with that bag that was in that pocket in my shirt? What are you talking about? There wasn't anything there. I don't know what you're talking about. And there wasn't anything there. And so it was just like, okay, that was weird. And it wasn't until a few years later that it was like, oh, there was drugs
Oh.
in that. He was thinking
Oh.
that I took his drugs. There was white powder in it, and that's what he said. So I wasn't even aware of it, but at that time we were engaged. And so because of the downloads or the programming of that you need to be a good wife, you are for better or worse. And it was so ingrained into me that I needed to be a good girl.
Hmm.
I had to be a good girl. I was so terrified of Jesus. I was
Hmm.
terrified that I was going to be,
Wow.
you know, punished by God, that I ended up having a hatred for Jesus and God and anything spiritual, religious. It just lit a fire of anger inside of me,
Yeah.
for the religious part. But I wanted so bad to be a good girl that, so like when I was in high school and any of the kids would be going out and sneaking and smoking pot and they'd invite me along, I'm like, oh, no, no, no. I was more terrified of getting in trouble than I was of trying something. So I never smoked. I never did drugs. I never went out and drank alcohol. I never did any of that stuff because I was so terrified to get in trouble. But because of that desire to be a good girl, of
Hmm.
being in trouble, that when I did first, we got married on our wedding night, it was miserable. It was not the bliss, beautiful wedding night. He got
Yeah.
drunk. He was an, I don't know if I can say bad words
Yeah.
publicly
Uh-huh.
here. He was
Go
an
ahead.
asshole on our
Wow.
wedding night.
Wow.
And it was an experience I would never want to experience again. But I went out and told everybody, we're so in love. I'm
Uh-huh.
so happy. I couldn't tell everybody what's happening behind closed doors. They would look at me and go, oh, you just married this man. You made your bed. Now you must lay in it.
Hmm.
I'm like, I can't tell anyone I have soiled sheets.
Hmm.
So over the years, I got to where I could become a different person, to be that happy person, to be that good girl in my marriage,
Yeah.
to be the higher person. And for the most part, I naturally was that. But there was a lot of things that over the years that he would do that I had to start to lie. I had to lie to him just to keep him off my back, because he was the kind of person that would fight you to hurt you. And he made
Hmm.
sure that if he was going to be reprimanding you, you were supposed to hurt for why he was reprimanding you.
And how soon after the marriage did you all have children and start a family?
We were born in not or born. Um, we were married in 96, and my firstborn was born in 97,
Okay,
September of
wow.
97. So very fast.
Yeah. And so getting back even to what I said earlier is yes, the red flags were there, but I think sometimes depending on the growth and the evolution of a person, what I'm saying is that although it was a red flag, you may not have even registered it as a red flag then.
Exactly.
It's looking back in retrospect and in hindsight, you say, wow, it was there. And I've never been in your situation, but I'm saying there have been past things I've been in where red flags were there, but I didn't recognize them as such. And so, as you're going through all of this and you're keeping up appearances, acting as if everything's going well, take us to what that was doing to you emotionally in terms of trauma. How was what you were living through, having a husband who was drunk, having to keep all of these secrets, having to just keep putting on this act as a good wife, but it wasn't an act to you. You were really sincerely trying to be this good wife based on everything that had been indoctrinated into you. So, Shelly, during this time, take us through that process of what was happening to Shelly. Did you become more quiet, reserved? Were you getting more outspoken? Just tell us about you during that time. How was all of this in terms of processing for you?
Well, I would have to say there was a lot of internal shame that I married him.
Really?
There
Wow.
was, that I didn't feel that I could get away from it.
Oh.
And the thought of divorce never occurred to me because it was like,
Really?
yeah, it didn't, because it was like people in my family don't get divorced, you know?
So you just accepted this was going to probably be your lot in life.
Yeah. So I tried to I was always coming up with ways to make our marriage happy and try to make our marriage happy. If I put myself in a state where I was super happy when he walked in the door, he treated me different.
Oh.
And so I tried to make sure it's like, oh, he's coming home. It's like, okay, I have to amp myself up. I have to get in that. I can't be a sad person. I can't, because he'll grab onto that. And he was the kind of person that would take your mistakes
Mm-hmm.
and he would keep them all in a box with him at all times. So he could throw them at you every time that he decided that you did something wrong. And he could
Wow.
remind you of every single one of them, that if I don't remind, and he would even physically tell me, if I don't remind you of these, you're never going to learn. And it's like, so I would try to do things to, I became almost a manipulator, because
Okay.
like I had to kind of, in my mind, it's like I have to veer him away from this subject so I can get him on something else so he'll quit bugging me about this. So when there's the times when he was always drinking, he'd always have drank a 6 pack of beer before he came home.
Oh,
So he'd always say, I've got to buy a 6 pack for his drive home.
before
And
he came home.
before he came home from work. So and sometimes, he, depending on his drive, but he was always, so I don't think that there was a day that he didn't drink. But when my oldest was 18 months old, we had a friend come to town and he wanted to go out and hang out with them. And I just said, I don't have a babysitter. And we lived in another town. And I said, I don't have a babysitter. And I just don't want to leave my 18-month-old with somebody.
That's right.
And I said, go visit your friend. It was his best friend's wife. And I know that they had an affair because he didn't get home till 7 o'clock the next morning.
Mm.
And I had spent the night on the phone trying to call him. He wasn't answering his phone. I was on the phone with her husband. We were both awake all night long. And then when he finally rolled in and he snuck in and slept in the guest bedroom. And then when I went and woke him up and said, where the hell you been? He goes, oh, well, he goes, I came in last night and decided not to wake you up. So I slept in here.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so mad that I didn't care what I said to him because he was still drunk. And he was supposed to be somewhere at 8 o'clock to do this big reclamation project. And I just told him, I said, you're supposed to be down there at 8 o'clock. So he jumps up, gets ready, and leaves in his truck. And I was still so mad that I called my neighbor and I said, he just left. And she goes, no, because she's like right next door. And she says, no, his truck is parked down behind the shop. And I'm like, so he just went. And then I went down there and found him asleep in the truck. And when I knocked on the door, he was still so drunk he could barely talk to me.
My
And he
goodness.
went down there just to fall asleep.
Jeez.
And so I packed up all my bags and I left. And I left him for a few weeks.
Wow.
And he had said that he quit drinking and he, swore that he wanted me back and all this. And well, you know, we did get back together, but I never ever fully trusted him. So in my mind, there's always, yeah, I don't believe you.
Yeah.
I don't believe you. So there was that other part of eroding that, yeah, you might be my husband. And I was terrified of because the way he treated me. So I couldn't speak up because I was still, my throat chakra was still so blocked.
Mm.
But over the years, we did have some good times.
Of course. Yeah.
And but we also, when he lost his job 5 years before our marriage ended, he lost his identity. And that's when he swirled down really fast. And that's when it got really bad.
Wow.
He was doing meth, he was doing cocaine, and he was not only drinking beer, he was lacing his Gatorade with vodka all day long. So
Oh my gosh.
it was really bad. And he would drink a 30 pack of beer every few days.
Oh, there was even a lot of trauma within him in terms of just hearing everything that he was experiencing. And so you're going through this, and I believe you said you were married in 1996.
1996.
Okay.
Mhm.
So you were married to him in 1996. You have a family. You're going through day after day after day, living with him, not knowing what each day would bring. And so, Shelly, take us to the moment where you signed your freedom papers, so to speak, where although divorce wasn't something you ever wanted as an option, how did you break free from that
Mhm.
relationship? What happened?
Um, we had been married almost 15 years. I had two children with him, and my youngest, he is one of those kind of boys that is just the sweetest,
Oh,
kindest, very gentle. Um, his feelings would get hurt very easy. You had to discipline him completely different. He was one of those kind of people that it's like you would tell him, he wouldn't lash out. But he would yell lash out if you disciplined him. If you were to
oh,
squat his butt, he would scream at you for 4 hours and tell you he hated you.
wow.
And he would just have this explosion. Like when he was 7 months old, he bit me when I was nursing him, and I swatted his butt because it hurt. I ended up getting an abscess on my breast
Oh
because he bit me
no.
so hard. And it was so I startled, and I just, of course, it didn't hurt him, but it startled him so much that as a 7-month-old baby, he would not let me touch him for hours.
Hmm.
So, and the reason I tell you this is because I was, my husband had come in the house and he was wanting attention from me, and he was wanting an attaboy. Like he wanted me to praise him for something that he had done outside.
Wow.
And I was busy making my son lunch. And and I remember I was standing there at the stove. He wanted grilled cheese and tomato soup. So
Hmm.
as I'm sitting there making the food, I remember looking down and making the food, and I was ignoring my husband. It was like, no, my son needed my attention. So I was making him lunch. And he said something rude to me. And when my son, my 10-year-old son, turned around and looked at him and started screaming at his dad and said, "Why are you so mean to my mom?" And he's screaming this. And I remember that big light bulb that said, "We're done. We are
Yeah.
done. You're hurting my kids." And of course, he'd been hurting them along the way too, but I was so trying to protect everything, keep everything together and all the pieces and parts that when he started screaming, it's like this little boy who never screams at anybody is such a soft, sweet, gentle boy,
And he had enough.
screamed at his dad. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just looked at him and I said, "Don't worry about your dad. Let's get you some lunch." And I just calmed myself down. I'm like, "No, you are the most important thing to me right now." So I remember thinking so strong, "We are done. You no longer have control over me."
Yeah. How did your husband at the time react to what your son said?
He just actually kind of stood there and was like he didn't know what to do. Like,
Flabbergasted.
what the
Yeah.
heck just happened? Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
And so it was after that I remember thinking, I don't know what's next. I don't know how to get out of this, but I know I can't stay here anymore. I can't
Hmm.
do this anymore. So I started chanting in my head, "Universe, bring me the next best thing.
Mm.
I
My,
don't know what it looks like, but I can't be here anymore. I'm
my
going to
goodness.
die." I had gone to the doctor. My organs were shutting down. I had fibromyalgia. I was not sleeping. I was on constant high alert when I was sleeping. I could not, any little noise, I would wake up immediately because he was on drugs and he was an alcoholic. He would do things in the middle of the night that I had to be constantly aware of because he would
Yeah.
stand up and I would find him peeing in our closet. And I would be hyper aware of every time he moved to get up and make sure I guided him to make sure he
Oh
went
my.
to the bathroom in the bathroom, because there was many times I caught him peeing in the corner. I caught him peeing on our couch. I caught him doing these things. And, and the next morning he would yell at me because I accused him of doing this stuff. It's like, yeah, I just went in the closet and just dumped a whole bunch of baking soda to soak up all. Yeah, I went
Yeah.
and peed in the closet to blame it on you. It's like, really? So there was a lot of accuse. And then he would start to go through my email. He was trying to find things to accuse me of doing that he was doing. He was trying to
Yeah.
find proof that I was having affairs, which come to find out he was having many of them. He was sleeping around with people when he would travel out of town. And so he was trying to find all these things that I was doing wrong so he could blame me because he was doing these things.
Yeah, and to
And
clear
that's
his
when,
conscience of his own guilt.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So meanwhile, my body is shutting down. It is like literally shutting down with like zero to no sleep at night. I
Mm.
remember having one night where I felt what it felt like to be complete in insanity. When he would come home and he would shake me awake in the middle of the night to tell me something. And when he shook me awake one night, normally if I would just kind of pretend like I was so sleepy that he couldn't wake me up, he would kind of go back and he would go to bed. And but this one night he comes and it was like 11 o'clock at night. And I remember he shook me and he's like, Shelly, wake up. Um,
Mm.
I turned around and I said, what? Because it was like, you woke me up for what? And he said, you didn't text me good night.
Oh,
And I
wow.
remember everything. I remember this fiery heat that came up and it exploded inside of me. And I got up and I just started screaming at him. And I was like, are you effing kidding me? And I screamed for like 45 minutes at him and just everything came out. And I remember him just standing there going, like, oh my God, what the
Of
heck is
course.
happening? And I just screamed until I had nothing
Wow.
left.
That girl,
And
that is,
so,
whew, that is quite powerful. And so you screamed at him, let him have it, and then after that, did you move out the next day? Did you kick him out? What happened then?
no, what actually happened was the he had gotten so mad one day and he says, I've never been so angry at you that I
Mm.
wanted to harm myself. And I said, then that would
Oh,
be on you. I said, because don't you dare put that stuff on me.
that's right.
And then what ended up happening is I did tell him, I said, I want a divorce. And he called me at work. At the time I had started cleaning houses because I needed some money. He was spending it all on drugs. So I needed money to feed my kids and put
Of
food on the
course.
table and give them clothes.
That's right.
So so I was cleaning houses, but he called me one day and he called me 15 times that day. And I ended up shutting off my phone because I had told him, I said, we're done. We're going to have a divorce. But so he called me, he would call crying. He would call saying, okay, I'll contact a lawyer. And then so it was like so many different emotions every time he called me.
Mhm.
And I finally just shut off my phone because I'm like, I can't get anything done. And he
Yeah.
was working nights. And so when I got home, I was upstairs helping my child with uh, um, their computer. And what ended up happening is we're sitting there working on the computer and my husband came home. He wasn't
Mm.
supposed to be home at 4 o'clock at night.
Mm.
And my oldest ran downstairs and he comes upstairs and he's like, he sits down on her bed and says, um, we need to fix our marriage. And I
Mm.
said, we're done. We're done. I said, there's nothing left to fix. I said, there's nothing left. And he goes, yes, we need to fix our marriage. And he had gotten, and there was a little bit other conversations, but I remember just this panic feeling inside that he was home. And then
Yeah.
he got down on his knees in front of me and he said, in order for us to fix your marriage, and little jump ahead or behind, I had changed my email and set up a dummy account. So when he entered my email, it looked like I deleted everything.
Okay, I got you. Wow, that's like
So
spy
yeah,
level
yeah. And
action.
so he gets down on his knees in front of me and he says, in order for us to fix our marriage, he goes, you need to give me access to your email. And I started laughing. And I said, he goes, and you need to quit deleting your emails, is what he said. And I said, I just started laughing. I said, I didn't delete my emails. I said, I just blocked you from it.
Wow.
And so that's when he said, then you're going to need to give me access to your email. And I said, you'll have nothing. You have no access to anything of me again.
Mm.
And because I said that, now before um, our whole entire marriage, he always said, I would rather die than hurt you.
Mm.
And he also said, I'm a better man on beer. Beer makes me a better man. He fully believed that beer made him a better person.
Wow. And that's
But
because he was so used to the addiction.
well,
Yeah.
but I also think there was something that he was trying so hard to get away from. There was something in his
Yes.
past that I never knew what it was, but
Okay.
I always told him, I said, what demons are you running from? Because
Exactly.
the man who was sober, the man that I actually fell in love with, he was incredible. He
Mm.
was so incredibly smart. We had so much goofy fun together.
Mm.
And that was the person that I would see glimpses of throughout our marriage. And so that's why it was like, oh, okay, I love you again because you're being sweet. You're being the person I fell in love
Mhm.
with. And so that's what made those other parts a little bit easier. So with that little backstory, when I said that you will never hurt me or touch anything of mine again, he lost control because he was drunk and high and he started to punch me.
Mm.
So I yelled at my oldest and I said, call the cops.
My
Call,
gosh.
no, I said, call 911. And so when you hear your child saying, my dad is beating up my mom, those are words that you never not hear ever. They're forever seared in the brain to hear that.
It's
And
heartbreaking. Yeah.
it is, but I think it was more memorable. Yes, I mean, he was punching me like crazy, but it was more that it's like, my child has to do this. And so I almost like stepped out of my body and I don't remember the pain. I don't remember, anything. I did have to go in later to see if my jaw was broken and I had big bruises on
Mm.
my forehead. I mean, I was just all bloodied up
Yeah.
but what ended up because he programmed himself that he would rather die than hurt me, he went and got the 22 pistol out of the nightstand drawer and it was locked with the lock, everything. And he got the keys in the lock, and went outside. And I had run down to take the phone away and I was on the phone with the police and he took that 22 pistol out to the garage. And I was telling him, I'm like, he's got a gun. So of course we'd had probably a foot of snow. So the
Yeah.
police, it was taking them longer to get to the house. And
Mm.
he comes back in the house and he yells into the house and says, whatever happens, don't forget that I love you. So it was almost like part of him, the main part of him, his his soul part had to make sure that he knew that he loved us.
Yeah.
And then I heard the gun go off.
Oh my
And
God.
I told the police, I said, I heard the gun. And in my mind, I heard a 22 pistol. A 22 pistol is not very, loud. So
Exactly.
when the police came and this was in the garage, so I needed to open the garage. And so I opened it and they're all standing there with their, ready to be prepared to whatever they needed to do. And all I heard them say was call off the EMT.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
And what he had ended up doing was he went to the gun safe and got out the 12 gauge shotgun.
Mm.
So there was no mistakes.
Wow. Oh,
And
wow.
yeah,
Wow. Wow.
so I ended up falling apart almost in relief, but also like I didn't know, it's like these things that the universe brought me because I kept saying next, next, next. I wanted the next best thing. And this big tragic event is happening that I knew I could not, I learned everything I needed to learn in that marriage. And the universe was saying, okay, he's done. He's basically finished his whatever,
Mm.
he needs to go. And as my dad would always say, he's got to go back to the recycling bin. But
Wow.
what ended up happening is I got extremely sick afterwards. And I know it was because my body was finally able to just relax. It was not having to keep everything so tight and be so on point and so hyper aware of everything. I finally started to relax enough that my body started to kind of detox the toxins that were
Mm.
in there. And for about a month straight, I was extremely miserable and sick. But one of the things that just blew me away was that the people that showed up for me, the situations, all the different things that showed up were so aligned with knowing that I was going to be taken care of. I didn't know what was going to happen. I know I couldn't afford to take care of this house by myself, but everything went into alignment of everything that needed to show up exactly as it was supposed to be. So when people showed up to my house, they were people that knew me. They were there for me. They
Mm,
showed up for me. And I had spent years volunteering for the PTO at the school. I was a committee chairperson for our Cub Scout group. I was, always volunteering and I was doing fundraising for the school. I just would always give, 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 give. And I never
mhm,
expected anything back. And I just love to do all these things. And it was like, I just knew that the universe was saying, here, you've done all this. Here's
mm.
my gift to you.
Wow. Oh, wow. Shelly, oh my gosh, I could talk to you for hours about this, and we are unfortunately coming to a close. This has been incredible, but just I have been usually I'll jump in with a lot more questions with my guests, but with you, I had to sense your story is so profound where I needed to give you the space to just release it because this show's premise is all about transformation, overcoming obstacles, pivoting, reinvention. And I sincerely believe someone listening to this needs what you have because they could be in a similar situation or in a similar state than where you were then and need to break free and break through from that. And just the way that you even described after it happened, so many things manifested in your body that had to be released and taken out and just changed into this beautiful person that you are today. And it was a process, of course.
Mm.
But as we come to a close, Shelley, the biggest question I have for you is how did that marriage and subsequently you becoming a widow, um, how in the world did that physical trauma that you experienced when you lost that physical trauma and then subsequently the weight started to come off as well, but my question to you is what did you learn most from that situation and how did it transform your life in being the person that you are today?
Mm. First, I would have to say that I was finally able to quit being the person that I had to become to survive the marriage,
Mm,
to be able to let go of that person and go back into my true authentic self.
mm,
Um, One of the biggest things that I learned, the very first vow I made to myself after he died was that I would never throw my anger at another person because I felt it was rude. I had anger thrown at me for so many years, and I knew what it felt like to be on the receiving end of it, and I never threw it back because I was like, I don't like this. I'm not going to do something to somebody else because it doesn't feel good to me, so I don't retaliate that way. So I had made that vow,
hmm
and that was my first big lesson. But then my second lesson was good, and this is taken, because he died in 2011. It took several yeah, I'm still learning, but the biggest things was to be able to go back and forgive those situations. So I had to forgive my husband. I've probably forgiven him hundreds and hundreds of times over the last 10, 14 years.
It's a process.
It
Yeah.
is. But
Yeah.
what started happening is not only did I forgive my husband, I forgave my mom, I forgave all these people, my brothers, all the different things that had happened throughout my life. And because I started to forgive these things, I started to sweat. I bought a sauna. So my body could sweat and detox that way. And I get so excited. Even today, it's like, if I start sweating, it's like, oh my God, I'm sweating. This is so cool. And people are like, oh my God, I hate sweating. It's like, you have no idea that it's because my body is releasing it. And I did the
Yeah.
hard work, the hard mental work. And I started to really question who I wanted to be. It's like,
Oh,
who am I really? And who am I supposed to be? How do I want to show up for other people? So when I started healing all these different things and going through all the emotional aspects of healing those things and really facing myself, and sometimes it was hard. Sometimes I would cry for weeks on end and I couldn't stop because it's like all this stuff
sure.
would kept coming up.
Yeah.
And so when it did start to release and be free, it wasn't until I released all that emotional garbage that was in me that when I did, and I yo-yo dieted for years. I mean, I
Okay.
was up and down and up and down and up and down. But it was after I had done so much work. I remember somebody saying, haven't you healed enough? Isn't it time you shared it?
What?
It
Wow.
healed enough that I can start to, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah. So then I started talking to people and people started coming over to my house and like, I didn't think that you could help me. I didn't think anybody would understand. And then pretty soon people are coming out of the woodwork. They're coming over to my house. I know that you'll understand. Can I share my story? Can I talk to you? What did you do? Can you help me? And I started having people just coming to me like that. And it was like, oh, okay, well, here's what I did, and I started naturally doing that. But it wasn't until I did so much emotional work on me that that's when I decided that it's like, okay, I'm ready to lose weight for the very last time.
That's right. Yeah.
And when I went into that, I did my very last diet, which I thought was my last diet. But then I found that when I finished it, it was like, I shouldn't have to go back. If you did your job right, I shouldn't have to come back to you to your same program to do the program again because I didn't, keep the weight off. And I thought, what's missing? What are all these diets out there not telling us? What is it that they're not teaching us? And so I went on a deep dive to understand what it was that is missing in like probably 98% of the diet. I mean, that's a made up, I don't know if that's an actual
Hmm.
proof, but it's like every diet I ever did, I gained weight back. And I thought, I want to be able to teach people that it's an ongoing process. If you gain a little bit of weight, I want you to have the tools to go, oh, I know exactly what I need to do. And I can take that weight off easily because I have the tools, I have the knowledge, and I know what I'm doing wrong. And I can go in there and adjust my own little dials. And I don't have to go pay someone to go fix me again because I can't seem to keep the weight off. I want you to
Yeah.
have those tools ongoing. I want to
Mhm.
look at you and I want to go, okay, you may not see what you're doing wrong, but tell me exactly what you're doing and let's work on it together. Let's make this program so you know exactly what you're doing. And it was when I started to embody that and get so excited over the human body that it became easy. But
Yeah.
those lessons, I wouldn't trade them for anything. Yeah, that marriage, it was hard. I got two beautiful children out of it. I have his parents. I love them too. I mean, they're still mom and dad to me. Um, Extended family, they're all still part of my life. But the man I married, he was incredible. He was an incredible man that had a horrible addiction.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. I am speechless. That is such a story of resiliency in more ways than one. And Shelly, if people are interested in working with you or learning more about you and how they can get in touch with you, because maybe there's a woman out there listening, or even a man who knows a woman who's even told him that, hey, I'm tired of all this up and down. How can someone connect with you, Shelly, for your services?
Well, I'm on Facebook a lot. I have a free weight loss group on Facebook that's called Women Winning at Weight Loss. And yeah, mostly I am on LinkedIn quite a bit, but mostly it's on Facebook.
Mm,
Um, so yeah, you can find me on Facebook. And I do have calls that if you wanted to book a call and just have a chat and see if I can help, and we can just kind of brainstorm where you're at and give you a little bit of clarity and see if you wanted to move forward, or if give you some insight of where you want to go from there. Either way, I love to talk to people. I love to chat with people and see where you are in your journey.
Thank you. And I'll have that in the show notes. And my closing question for you, Shelly, is this. Say if there's someone that's listening to this and they hear you, they know that there are some trauma aspects in their life that they're experiencing. They know that they have the added emotional weight that's hindering them from getting off that physical weight, or they yo-yo up and down, but there's still certain things that they haven't addressed. And they hear you and say, well, it sounds good and all, that she was able to escape that in a tragic way, but at least she got out of it. But there possibly just couldn't be any hope for me to escape this trap that I'm in. What would you say to that woman?
At one point, I thought I was her.
Mm,
I never thought that I could have gotten out. And if someone would have told me that you are worthy, you are a beautiful soul,
mm,
you are, you know, this incredible, wonderful woman, I don't know if I would have believed it because of the
mm,
mind programming that I was under.
mhm,
But if you were to take a young baby and look at that baby and look at that beautiful soul as that perfect little being that just came into this world, you would never look at that baby and say a bad word about that baby at all. In fact, just on Saturday, we held our great grandson for the very first time, and I fell so hard in love with that little boy,
mm,
just hours old. And it just, you would never, ever say a bad thing about that baby.
mm,
Take your adult self and find a baby picture and look at that baby. What does that baby deserve? What would you say to that baby as your adult self? What would you say to that baby? That baby deserves everything in the world, every chance, every hug and cuddle and kiss. They deserve to be happy. They came to this world perfect, and you are still that baby. That little baby in you deserves all the happiness and love it can desire.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Power Transformation Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow or subscribe, leave a 5-star rating, and write a review. It helps us inspire even more listeners. And don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who could use a little power in their transformation. Until next time, keep bouncing back, keep rising, and be good to yourself and to others.